Welcome to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports podcast.
The fastest growing entertainment phenomenon of this generation.
I, Prophet of Esports, joined today by my friend and co-host William Collis.
Yeah, we got the book of esports out. It's a big deal.
So everyone knows me as the Prophet and William as the Professor.
From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports after show live stream. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Lindsay Poss, Victoria Taylor, William Collis, Jeff Cohen. The full cast today. For those of you who are new to the after show live stream, what we do here is we cover all the news stories, all the business talk, everything that we couldn't fit into the podcast. We do all of it here. We do all of it live with you. We get to interact. You guys get to ask us questions, get to push back, challenge us. It's the best part of the after show live stream, but we still, dissect, we still analyze all the business implications of everything happening in these esports and gaming news stories. For those of you who are regulars, welcome. Cam, I see you out there. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in every week to the live stream. Thank you guys for telling your friends and colleagues about the live stream. If you haven't, please do so. Or just tell them about the podcast. That works too. Or leave a 5-star rating and review on the podcast. That's also great. Guys, how are you doing this week?
Great. Are we not going to talk about the new background for the live stream? Is that just going to go? I love it. Yeah. We just get it.
Cool, no?
It's amazing. I don't know. I was speechless by the upgraded graphics. I'm dazzled.
It's the Tom Brady philosophy here. We're never perfect. It's always seeking perfection. It's always improving, right?
Does that mean you're not going to eat a strawberry for the next 12 years too?
I don't eat strawberries anyway, so there you go.
Wait, does Tom Brady not eat strawberries?
No, William. It's an acidic food, and he's on an alkaline diet to balance his pH perfectly. Duh.
It's ironic because the Tom Brady diet is also kind of the Crohn's diet. This is why Tom Brady and I are we look so similar. We're built exactly the same. I mean, there's literally
don't you often get mistaken for him?
All the time. People come up to be like, Tom,
so
congrats. Yeah,
hard.
Yeah. Lindsay, you saw it at PAX. Everyone. No, I'm not Tom. No.
Yeah, everyone asking for TB12 gear. It was rough.
William, you shouldn't be laughing this hard.
No, I'm laughing at Lindsay's effortless sports references. She just constantly demonstrates domain expertise.
That's it.
Someone's got to do it.
I mean, next to you and me, this is not exactly like a high bar. Let's put it that way.
It's true. I do excel when the competition is low.
That's it. Greg says, hey guys, hey Greg. Stupid big thumbs. Are you doing this on your phone, Greg? Because then I agree. Guys, we got so much stuff to talk about. We had a very unique episode of the podcast this week. It was very different. I can't wait for you guys to listen to it because I would love your feedback on it. I'm truly curious if you guys like what we did this week. We had a guest, Ben Pero from YouGov, and he brought with him a ton of really cool esports and gaming data. So we went through a bunch of interesting, findings, data points, things that their research has come up with, and what the repercussions of some of those data points are. And, we had good discussion around them. I'm really curious if you guys like that. Maybe if we should make it a regular segment to, always have one kind of cool statistic every week on the podcast or something like that. But that is what you have in store for you tomorrow. We also very briefly, StreamYard here is having lots of issues sharing my screen. So unfortunately, I can't really bring it up here, but we did discuss Jimmy Broadbent, who is a sim racer, moving up to real life race cars, was the one news topic that we did get to. And it's a very cool story about how basically he's a very good sim racer. He's one of the best in the world. and now has been recruited to go race real cars at basically not the highest level. It's not F1, but at a very, very high level. And that kind of crossover that we're starting to see. Martin says, "Oh, funky new background." Martin, if you like it, tell me. If you don't, tell me. I don't know. Is funky a good thing? So that's what's in store for tomorrow. So we have a bunch of stuff to talk about today. What do you guys want to start with? Where do we start? We have a lot of public companies announcing earnings, so we can talk about, Ubisoft and Unity and EA and Activision and all these kinds of things. I suggest. Well, what do you guys think? Let's start with that.
Company news. I want Jeff's perspective.
Putting me on the spot there.
What's that, Jeff?
Putting me on the spot there, William. I've got these new AirPods. Everything's like really loud, so I don't know. It's like the scene from, I forget the Will Ferrell movie where he's like, voice modulation. Maybe it's an SNL thing, but I can't tell if I'm yelling. Everything sounds really loud.
Yes,
so
look at you.
I'm not good with
modern technology.
I'm not good with technology, as you can see.
We need to get Jeff out of like the 1990s tech.
He's like those tech.
Jeff's like the horse and buggy are powering the lights as fast as they can.
Seriously, it's pretty much like that, but whatever.
Okay, so let's talk about some public company stuff. All right. I don't know. I can try bringing this up, but it might freak out on me. Let's start with Ubisoft. Ubisoft announced. Hang on, let me share my screen here. They announced their earnings. They posted sales of €1 billion, $1.2 billion in their fiscal third quarter, doubling year on year. So big increase. And they were boosted by new games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and their back catalog. But the company shares sank 6% because they're basically saying going forward. Oh, there we go. As soon as I do that, it freaks out. Going forward, that those results would not be sustainable. Basically, that they were guiding sort of analysts lower going forward. So we have Ubisoft. Let me just sort of give you the lay of the land here. Got Ubisoft that was reporting that I have this article on. Activision Blizzard did report, also posted a big beat. They beat analyst estimate. Call of Duty sustained 100 million monthly active players. World of Warcraft increased net bookings 40%, and their stock spiked 12%. So we've got Activision Blizzard. Konami, record profits thanks to its gaming division. I'm just going to go across the board here. Unity stock fell because they said the revenue growth would slow, even though they did top analyst estimates. EA obviously announced, and their big acquisition as part of that, the Glue Mobile acquisition, which we can talk about sort of on its own, but also had good results. And finally, Corsair beat estimates. And they said it's because consumers are turning to gaming amid the pandemic. Their stock since September has been up more than 200%. Sales up year over year, 70%, and earnings up 152%. So Corsair also having a really good year, really good quarter. Jeff, sort this out for us. What does this all mean? Who should we be excited about, and who should we not be?
There is definitely a lot to unpack there. I'd say Activision we want to be most excited about. EA, not sure I love the acquisition. We could dig into each one of these. Yep. Ubisoft, fundamentally the problem with Ubisoft, and I used to cover them as an analyst, they have two problems, and it really, the reason why they don't have the same margins as kind of the rest of the industry is, one, they lag behind on in-game bookings. So if you think about, their titles like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, The Division, they're typically either single player or kind of co-op. They don't really have like deep in-game, economies and in-game spending. They tried with, what was the one they put out last year that was a complete bomb? Oh, Ghost Recon. They basically tried pump in a ton of in-game spending, thinking they could just shove it in there and then be like the new EA where they have this massive gravy train of in-game bookings. But what they found was that if you don't build your game kind of from the ground up for that, it becomes basically a pay-to-win, piece of crap. Then they also had the added problem of it being buggy and just not a very good game. And that turned out to be a disaster. And, the stock, if you recall, I think it was last fall, went down like 40 or 50%. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is fundamentally they don't have any massive titles in terms of the scale of a FIFA, a Call of Duty, a Grand Theft Auto. Their biggest title is, probably Assassin's Creed or maybe Far Cry. Those typically will sell each, iteration probably 10 or 12 million units, whereas, Call of Duty and FIFA sell 20, 25 million units a year. And when we're talking about gaming, these things, particularly when you're talking about digital sales, the incremental margins, so the cost that it takes to replicate one additional unit of a game is essentially zero, right? Once the game is created, it's all fixed cost. So the more units you sell, naturally your margins kind of like shoot upwards just because of, the nature of basically the economies of scale. They don't have that because they don't have any what I would call kind of mega hit titles. So that's kind of Ubisoft. I'll sort of pass the line, but the one thing I wanted to mention before, just taking another dig like I like to do at CD Projekt, a friend of mine texted me this amazing stat that GTA 5 sold more units this year than Cyberpunk. So it's just like, I get we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but it is truly mind blowing for GTA 5.
I just want to, Lindsay, I'm curious, and Jeff, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Among the big game publishers, okay, if we look at the ones we just mentioned, Activision, Blizzard, EA, and Ubisoft, right? Ubisoft does not, as far as I know, have a major mobile presence. Is this part of what's holding them back, Lindsay, you think, from a story perspective? Like, Activision Blizzard loves to trot out their King, acquisition. Now EA has Glue. Where is Ubisoft on mobile? Like, is this critical, you think, at this stage that they have more visibility in that space?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the problem that I've been seeing with Ubisoft is that they haven't had a lot of hype around their launches, which has been, and they haven't had a lot of sustained hype around their launches. And they produce good games, obviously, but they don't seem to have the same level of cultural phenomenon that some of the other big publishers do. They certainly have some because they're successful publishing companies, so they have an audience, but it doesn't seem to be the same amount. So maybe being more accessible to users would help that. I don't know.
Will an Assassin's Creed TV show, which I think is in the works, help?
That I actually think could. I do too. There's kind of, to me, there's a little bit of a subsection of the audience within gamers, right? Some are like more hardcore and will very much enjoy things like the Assassin's Creed show and things like that. Other ones are definitely more like on the cultural side, like, playing Call of Duty with their friends or because, a celebrity plays it or whatever. I think Ubisoft's, core audience is more of like the hardcore gamers or people who are kind of more into like, Reddit forums on games and like Instagram, for lack of a better reference point there. So I definitely think that adding multimedia would help because I think that true gamers would probably enjoy a show, maybe even more than a mobile game, just depending. So hopefully that helps.
William, one of the things they mentioned in the Ubisoft call was the strength of Rainbow Six. And that the player base there has increased. Trying to remember the exact number, I can bring it up here, but the point is that they emphasize that as sort of a big win for them. My feeling has been that Rainbow Six Siege as an esport is definitely not S tier or even A tier. Maybe a B tier esport. And I don't know, maybe that offends you. I'm sorry, but like. Is this enough to stand on, right? Like, are they talking about a property here that sort of has come and gone as an esport, or do you think the strength of Rainbow Six has real legs long term?
I would vigorously defend that Rainbow Six Siege is an esport, and I think the fact that they're making a big deal out of it in their earnings call is, speaks to that, right? Like, I think it's possible that I think it's certainly true that maybe you're not. I'm trying to think how to say this. No, I think it's a great esport, and I think the more interesting thing here is that it is an esport property being called out as a consistent revenue driver, and like let me put it this way. But I'm trying to collect my thoughts here to make the argument. So, like, the name of the game here, basically, if I look at this, appears to be making Grand Theft Auto 5s, right? Like, let's be honest, to take a page from Jeff Cohen's playbook, right? It seems like the best business model you can get here is to release a game and then keep selling it. And, I think there's so many jokes about GTA 5. Like, I think it was like, GTA, like PlayStation 3 had PlayStation 3 had 3 GTAs. Like Grand Theft Auto 5 had 3 PlayStations or something. I can't remember what it is, but like, the point is, like, the perennial games are what you want. And there seems to be rare single player and online enhanced games that can do this with deep communities, basically World of Warcraft and GTA, and then the esports titles that achieve this, right?
But are you putting Rainbow Six in the same group here as WoW and GTA?
I'm putting it in a group of titles that launched a while ago, but have continued to sustain and grow post-launch because of decisions the publishers have made that have allowed the publishers to reap revenues from those titles for a significantly enhanced time frame. And I think we're even going to have an article about this today. I think in today's world where the cost of developing games has gone up and the time to develop games have gone up, it is no longer becoming an option, or it's no longer becoming viable to be a publisher who's doing, one-hit wonder titles. That's the challenge with a CDPR, right? You need to be entrenching your titles and monetizing them for multiple years. And the point I take away from all these earning calls is the publishers are most excited about their perennial titles. And the only real replicable formula we seem to see across the perennial titles is an emphasis on esports, because not many people have figured out how to turn single player games into Grand Theft Auto. Even the same publisher doesn't know how to do that with Red Dead Redemption, right? But what does seem to be consistent is esports in a competitive scene is one of the best ways of growing player base and giving long lift across a title's life.
Yeah, I mean, just to highlight that, I would say, quickly, from the EA earnings call, I mean, we like to sometimes hate on Apex Legends and maybe talk about what it could have been and kind of the quote unquote missed opportunity. But, they're on track to do 500 million in bookings from that title, this fiscal year, and expecting it to grow next year. And that's all digital, incredibly high margin, free to play. There's not a ton of marketing against that revenue. Like that's a massive successful franchise. And I remember I came on the podcast way back when, and we were kind of having this debate and there was some pushback on, EA and how they dropped the ball with Apex. And it was like, my comment was, this is a very successful franchise. I mean, think about it. That $500 million is effectively like almost selling 7 or 8 million units. How many video games out there are there that sell 7 or 8 million units? That's almost the size of like an Assassin's Creed launch every year, but at way higher margin.
And more to the point, that is that you're getting those revenues and you don't have to develop the game every year. You develop it once. Now, I'm not saying that live services aren't incredibly difficult to do and demanding and require a rich team and investment. It's not, it's not a free pass at the soda fountain, right? To invest into a successful title and entrench it than it is to roll the dice on a new title.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Does that $500 million number mean that Apex has passed essentially Fortnite from a yearly revenue perspective? Didn't we do the math last week that the third party, like Epic, did 700 million in revenue or something, and 250 of that?
That was just the store, I think. Yeah, I don't think that included Fortnite. That may have included Fortnite if you consider Fortnite paying the store. I don't think that was all.
No, the way it was broken up was $700 million for what they called what it was revenue, and 250 million of that was third party. So 700 minus 250 was, I assume, first party, which could be Rocket League and Fortnite, right?
Yeah.
But you're still talking only 450 million there of first party revenue.
That would be surprising.
I don't know if that number is right, but that puts Apex higher than Fortnite from a pure revenue perspective, which is interesting in and of itself. I think my position on Apex always has been sort of like you were the chosen one. You were the one that was sort of going to destroy Fortnite, and it obviously it's a massive success and it's a great game. It's a game I personally love. I just think it maybe didn't live up to the esports expectations. I think this is where EA dropped the ball, which is developing it into a competitive esport with big prize money at the highest level, where they haven't done much with it. Now, I just want to come back to Ubisoft quickly. I want to read two comments here. Martin says, yeah, I'd take a TV show over a mobile game any day. Well, we'll see how good the Assassin's Creed show will be. It's just not the cash cow mobile can be. Definitely not. And Greg says, William's sticking with the mic so he can drop it. He just likes the look. And this question, Victoria, for you potentially here, which is Ubisoft in their earnings call said Rainbow Six had 70 million players, right? And they didn't specify. In none of the articles that I saw about the earnings call were they specific around, were these like daily active users, right? Were these people playing the game? And it felt like they kind of glossed over that, and it was more like, we have 70 million people playing the game, right? Like, do you think some of these numbers potentially, especially on the Ubisoft front, where they're relying on Rainbow Six Siege to be their anchor here, right? Their tentpole, that not mentioning how many people are actually playing daily is a purposeful oversight, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think it's pretty clear that Rainbow Six has a pretty strong cult following for sure. But in terms of what the question you're posing, how they're presenting that statistic, I think if they had something to brag about, they'd make it fairly clear, especially when they're not in the strongest cash position and they are getting a little bit of pushback. So yeah, not too sure what their angle was, or if they're withholding that to make it seem a little bit more admirable, but it's hard to say.
So do you think, I'm curious what you guys, any of you, attribute the fall in Ubisoft stock price to, right? Because again, the call was very positive. They beat the earning, like analyst estimates. The Rainbow Six is up 15 million players from last year. Well, why do you think the investor sentiment turned on them?
I mean, I haven't had a chance to completely go through it, but I think, one of the things you mentioned when you talked about it was, the guidance was a bit weaker than maybe people had expected. So anytime you're evaluating a stock, particularly around earnings, typically the stocks move on the forward-looking commentary and the forward-looking guidance. So, it's all well and good to say, hey, here's how great we did in the past. But usually what ends up moving the stock after the announcement is kind of what the commentary is about going forward, because investors will underwrite to the future, earnings and kind of profits. So I imagine it was probably something in the commentary talking about maybe, a little bit more muted for the future, or maybe saying, hey, look, this was kind of the best it's going to get. Like, we did really well because of COVID. And, now in the future, we're expecting a little bit higher expenses or slower growth. And I haven't fully read it, so I don't know if that's entirely there, but I read some commentary that basically that was what they were saying.
There's also a bit of context here that I think we're missing, which is like, this is a stock that's had a very good year, right? Like, if you look at where Ubisoft started the year, it was at like 13, 14, and it's up to 18 today, even with the dip. Part of this too, I think, is just like all the games companies have had such strong runs over the COVID time period, even if there's a little bit of correction, based on future earnings and, like, the reality is, like, they've all had massive sustained increases in valuation.
Guys, I think those are both good points. I want to pivot here to the Glue Mobile acquisition and EA's sort of discussion. But before we get to that, just one last thing on the Ubisoft thing. On that call, one of the analysts asked the CEO if he mentioned, one of the answers mentioned the Glue Mobile acquisition, right? And then asked whether Ubisoft would explore mergers and acquisitions to fuel future growth. And in response, the CEO said, Ubisoft's approach, and I'm quoting here, was mainly to buy new technologies rather than content.
Interesting.
Victoria, do you think this is misguided? You think this is like he's missing the mark a little bit here? Where every other big developer is buying other developers, he's saying he wants to buy tech. Curious what you think.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, especially if you're going to be the black sheep and go that route, it kind of is a little bit of a red flag. I don't really know what the play is here.
William?
Well, what's interesting is that Ubisoft has made some acquisitions in mobile over the last couple of years, but they've all been hyper casual, which is like not that great of a segment. I mean, it's all advertising driven. It's these like crummy little games that people download, and then basically the ads in the game are for other games, and those developers pay to get your players, and then you get money from them, and then you advertise to their player. It's all like a big, I don't want to say Ponzi scheme. I'm kind of kidding when I say that, but like it sort of is. It's just a bunch of games advertise, like cycling and churning the same users and all paying each other to get more players. So it's not a great business, I don't think, hyper casual, but they've made 2 acquisitions in that kind of sector within mobile. Now, to be fair, Zynga's made an acquisition, hyper casual. A couple of other smart buyers have. There's a theory out there where, with these IDFA changes, and this probably gets way too in the weeds for anyone to be interested, but some of the changes that Apple is making with advertising and kind of mobile advertising, having these large scale player databases is going to be valuable because you can cross sell them to your other games where you can actually. So we'll see.
I don't think Ubisoft has enough presence really in mobile for those kinds of regulations to really matter to them. Greg says content is king. And Greg, I agree 1,000%, which is why I'm surprised the CEO would make a statement like that. I'm not sure what he was hoping to accomplish with a statement like that. It seems like to actively say you're just out of the M&A kind of discussion and out of what's going on in the industry feels like he's a little bit out of touch there. William, I don't know if you feel the same way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I will point out Ubisoft has a startlingly good suite of brands that they own, right? Like even amongst the major publishers, Ubisoft just has a very deep bench, right? Just think about it. They have all the Tom Clancy stuff. They have Assassin's Creed. They have Watch Dogs. They have Prince of Persia. They have Far Cry. They have For Honor. They have Brawlhalla. And I can keep going, but like they have a really deep bench of titles. But also, Ubisoft, unlike a lot of other AAA publishers, isn't necessarily shy about launching new IP. Like they just launched Immortals Phoenix Rising, which maybe didn't, I don't know how well it sold, but it got very good reviews. And it points out the fact that these guys do, at least compared to, I would say, other AAA publishers, they seem to have more confidence in producing new brands themselves. And so certainly that could color a bit of that approach.
I would say, to use a sports analogy, Ubisoft has a roster full of Ryan Fitzpatricks. They don't have any Tom Brady's. They have a bunch of product, outside of maybe Far Cry and Assassin's Creed. It goes back to my point earlier. They have a bunch of, call it B titles. Assassin's Creed probably, recently, the last 2 years, has definitely gone up into the A category. But again, they don't have anything that sells more than 10 or 12 million units, which is nothing to sniff at. But when you're talking about, franchises and kind of like IPs that are out there, I don't think they have anything in the top.
Question for you guys.
Go ahead, Victoria.
I was just going to say, question for you guys. I read somewhere today that Ubisoft's revenue over the past 9 months, their mobile bookings were 8% of their revenue. Do you guys know how that compares to other developers?
So that's a lot lower than Activision because they have King. That's probably 30% of the business. That's higher than Take-Two. So Take-Two is the interesting one. I mean, they're the one that, if we want to skip ahead and talk about who should buy Zynga, they should absolutely do it. the question is, would Strauss, he's always been against free-to-play, he's always been against mobile. They have this pedigree of, they put out kind of the best quality games. So outside, they dabbled in mobile with Social Point. They made it was like a $250 million acquisition a few years back. But like, I don't see them spending $20 billion on Zynga or whatever it would cost, $15 billion.
Whoa. This is I don't want to let you get a free pet, because this was the whole reason I wanted to talk about public company stuff. I want the full Jeff Cohen explanation why Zynga Take-Two as a marriage makes sense, because I'm really curious, because I see a high level view they need to index more in mobile revenues, and this is a good way to do it, but like, give me the deeper story,
Guys, look at this seamless transition. One topic to another.
Hold on, let's just
Beryl says you guys rock.
I can't go into the frame.
And I will say, Beryl, you rock. For those of you who don't follow him, you have to. He makes some of the best videos in the business. Anyone listening needs to follow him. Incredibly inspirational, awesome videos. Jonathan, great to have you here. Okay, the Zynga conversation is an interesting one, right? Because Take-Two couldn't be more culturally different. How do you justify smashing two companies together that most likely don't see eye to eye on anything game related, like anything?
I think that may have been more true 5 years ago than it is now. Like, I know 5 years ago, Zynga's, corporate culture, like in their whole, it was basically like, we don't make games, we basically make monetization engines like that we craft around a game. It's basically just a little, black box that gets you to spend money. When Frank came over from EA, their CEO was at EA. I think he was the head of studios there. At that point, the stock was like $2 or $3. It was basically trading for less than what the building that they owned was worth. And they've done, Frank and Jared, the CFO, came over from EA as well, have done an incredible job turning around the company, on focusing on what they call forever franchises. So like Words of Friends, Zynga Poker, and then they've done a great job with acquisitions. They bought Merge Magic, Merge Dragons, that studio, it's called Graham Games. They bought Small Giant Games and have really had those bookings like accelerate. I would say those two studios are, they make real games. They're not kind of these monetization traps that I was talking about before. So I don't think they would necessarily agree that the cultures are completely different, but I do agree that Take-Two has never really shown that actually they say straight out, like Strauss, you ask him, he's like, doesn't really buy into mobile. He thinks it's hit or miss, and the UA costs are very high. It's hard to be profitable. So that's why it probably wouldn't happen. Why it should happen is because mobile is the largest and fastest growing subsegment of gaming, and it's massive globally. It's a trend that's clearly not going away. These businesses are incredibly profitable, and Take-Two really is nowhere in mobile. And if you want to be a top flight, multi-platform publisher in this day and age, you can't do that really without having a presence on mobile. EA kind of just made their move. I think they should have bought Zynga. I could rant about that.
They still could, Jeff.
They could. That'd be aggressive. But EA bought Glue. Activision clearly has King. So it's sort of
Take-Two in some ways is kind of on the small side to swallow Zynga, right? They're not an order of magnitude bigger. Yeah. They're mostly equal. Like Take-Two, I'm looking. Take-Two's market cap's about 20 billion. Zynga's around 12, right? We're talking about more a merger of equals really than an acquisition. I just worry about the Lindsay, I'm curious, do you have any desire to play GTA on mobile or Red Dead on mobile? Like, would any of the IP translate for you?
First of all, if they had GTA role-playing, I'm totally in on mobile.
People role-playing like on their cell phones, like you don't even have to look on.
It would be like Clubhouse, but in GTA, audio-only format. If GTA was like, they could probably pare GTA down to be mobile, because turning a racing game mobile is not at its core, GTA is a racing game, or you could make it into a racing game, or you could eliminate parts of the world, but some of the other IP I don't think makes a lot of sense. So if you are starting over from scratch, then I don't know if it's worth it. But I don't know. They could.
So just to pour some cold water on the GTA to mobile thing, I don't think that will ever happen because Rockstar doesn't. Well, so Rockstar doesn't develop mobile games, and Rockstar will never. So the beautiful thing about Activision Blizzard, when you have Bobby kind of pulling the strings, who made Call of Duty Mobile? Not Activision. It was Tencent and their Teamy studio, which is incredible. They've developed a ton of these great shooter games. That will never happen at Take-Two because Rockstar will never, over their dead bodies, allow GTA to be a mobile game. So as great as it would be, I don't think that would ever happen.
But isn't that a huge problem, right? Yeah. Because very seriously, the whole reason why I wanted, why I could see Take-Two's mobile revenues being so critical is from a property like GTA. It's like the most natural fit for mobile for me. And isn't that crazy? Every other AAA property that's a major success seems to want to go to mobile, but not these guys.
Well, that
Rockstar. Sorry, go ahead,
Lindsay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it sort of begs the question where if you take a property or an IP that's obviously too complicated to put on mobile as is and kind of dumb it down into various versions of games, as Chris suggested, casino, racing, drug dealing, whatever. Do you think that the crossover between players who play on their phones, do you think that there will be a major crossover between players who play on their phones who then go on to play the fully immersive world experience? Is that a good way of actually upping your MAUs, or is it really just taking your IP and dumbing it down and mass marketing it that nobody wants? So with Call of Duty, it's a little bit different because I think that the IP, you don't have to tear it up as much to put it on mobile. The basics kind of remain the same. But for these more complicated interworld games, is it worth dumbing it down? Will there be a big crossover? Is that something that they can monetize on? I don't know that anyone. Can you all think of any examples of anyone who's kind of taken a big one and crunched it down successfully?
Fortnite.
Or not successfully?
Well, Fortnite also like any shooter translates pretty directly. What is the Bethesda game there? Now I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Where they did the Fallout, right? Where they had kind of a dumbed down mobile companion sort of game. It was like you're in the vault or something, and it wasn't actually Fallout brought to mobile. It was sort of like a cheapo companion game. And Chris sort of is alluding to this, like GTA Casino Mobile, GTA Drug Dealing Mobile, GTA Meth Lab Mobile.
Why don't you just do a GTA Match 3? I mean, the problem, it's like the same debate we always have with Nintendo, where I get angry at this point where we keep having it's like Rockstar, these guys, William loves to use the phrase they're auteurs. I'm not sure even if I pronounced that correctly, but the Hauser brothers, I think there's only one there still, but there are auteurs. They are never, even if you gave them $1 billion, they already have $1 billion. They don't care. They are not going to put the next Red Dead or the next GTA on mobile. They just will not do it. And Strauss, even if he wanted to, can't make them do it. They really are a unicorn in the industry where they, maybe Hideo Kojima is in the same, pantheon, but they are in and of themselves completely different, and they are similar to Nintendo. They just, for whatever reason, they won't change.
This is what happens when I put William and Jeff next to each other. They're slowly rubbing off on each other, using words like auteur and Hideo Kojima.
I don't even know who Hideo Kojima is. Never played one of his games.
Just gradually becoming the same human being. Jonathan says, mass consolidation of gaming properties will soon equate to big tech. Move now or risk being left behind. Jonathan, no question. Again, I even think we talked about this in our sort of trends for this year, is consolidation is going to happen. And I think it's going to happen at what people will call crazy kind of numbers. But in the long run, they're all accretive. This is the perfect kind of segue to Glue Mobile, right? Glue Mobile, again, I'm sorry, I can't bring up the article here, but actually I could probably post it in chat. That might be a better way of doing this. Glue Mobile acquisition, EA acquired them for $2.4 billion. Glue Mobile has like the Kardashian game. They have Tap Sports Baseball, and then they have a whole bunch of other stuff. And so I think a lot of people panned this acquisition for the price. I have my own thoughts on that, but I'm curious, where you guys are on, like, Victoria, does the Kardashians mobile app, is this what EA really needed from a portfolio perspective, or
does anyone really need that?
There's a lot of players, so I
know. I'm just joking. Did they really need that? I mean, they're diversifying. I'll give them that.
Well, we've just been talking about how everyone needs a mobile play, right? Is this EA trying to follow the Activision Blizzard playbook in your mind?
I'd say yes. I think. I mean, they've had a lot of acquisitions into it's racing, right? So I think it's
Codemasters. Yep.
Codemasters. Yep. Codemasters does Dirt. Is that
F1
correct?
is their big is the big title.
Okay. So what do I think? Do I think this is a good move? Yeah. I mean, like you said, they have the users, right? They have the users. They have the successful titles. And it's just another big jump into mobile. I don't think there's any question that mobile is going to continue to grow. So I think that, they're acquiring a company that knows what they're doing. They know how to engage their audience and keep them stuck to the games. So 100% a good play.
William, I'm curious where you're at on the Glue. We haven't talked about this offline, so I don't know where your thoughts are on EA buying Glue.
I struggle with this too, because, and I think I've said pretty clearly, I like pretty much any acquisition taking place today, because I think we're in a moment where brand agglomeration is key, right? And you want to buy as many brands as you can right now, because they're all going to go up in price, and you better get them in your portfolio today, because we do seem to be moving to a world where it's harder and harder to introduce new, totally unique original content plays. That being said, I look at the Glue Mobile suite of brands, and it doesn't really feel to me like they're brands. And if they are brands, and this might be very unfair to Glue Mobile, but so please take it with a grain of salt. But if you look at something like the Kardashian game, that doesn't feel like Kardashian. Sorry, Kardashian.
Lindsay, I was waiting for you to jump in there.
Did I say the Star Trek race? Is that what I did?
You did. The Kardashians are a completely different issue.
Which must be dealt with alongside the Ferengi and the Borg.
That's it. Their oppression of the Bajorans must stop.
Starfleet shall never allow. Okay, we got.
I think we've geeked out on Star Trek enough.
But the point I'm making is, it doesn't really feel like a portfolio of own brands. It feels like a collection of users, if you look at what Glue has. And I am less bullish on big acquisitions for UA spend, and a property like the Kardashians. There we go. A property like the Kardashians. I just really want to say the Star Trek word. Like, yes, it's big and popular, but it also doesn't feel as topical, even as a brand, as it maybe did 5 years ago, or even maybe 10 years ago, because I think they've been on air for about that long. So I'm less optimistic about this, because it feels like a user play, not a content play, and I like content plays today.
That's fair. I think it's funny. I mean, I just looked up Glue Mobile games, and yes, number one game that comes up is the Kim Kardashian. But that's just it. They're the ones who have, no streamlined content here. You scroll a little bit, and all of a sudden you're into Deer Hunter. You're into the deer hunting games. And then they have Diner Dash, another really popular title. So I get what you're saying. I get the concern by bringing them on. Is it going to, tarnish that content theme that they have going? Again, it's just diversifying. It's a user play. They're bringing on all of the stickiness with the users. It's hard to say.
I'll tell you guys, everyone knows, like, I understand the potential in mobile gaming and the growth and, why it's all exciting. I'm not personally a fan of mobile gaming. That aside, I love this acquisition. I actually think it's fantastic for EA. And I think the explanation here is very simple. it really is very, very simple. Glue did 411 million in revenue in 2020. Okay. And they're being bought for 2.4 billion, which means, you know, EA is paying about 6 times revenue. If you look at EA, what they're trading at right now, and they're down a bit over the last few days, but you know, at their high, they've been trading at about 9 to 10 times revenue, right? This kind of acquisition, you're buying at 6 times revenue and you're trading your own company at 9 or 10 times. This is immediately accretive. Like, this is a fantastic acquisition for
Paul,
EA shareholders.
The problem that if you look at it just on a revenue basis, that's correct. But, you know, EA is valued on earnings, right? Rather than, or EBITDA, and they paid 30 times EBITDA. So I don't think the multiple, like that multiple arbitrage probably doesn't work as well if you look at it from the bottom line. So I don't know if I agree with you there, and that might be why the stock has been down. The interesting thing here for EA, you know, is that for the longest time, you know, all investors have been getting on them about mobile because they really haven't had, you know, a great plan in mobile. Their mobile revenues have been down, I think, the last 2 years. You know, can you guys hear me still, or is everyone frozen?
Yeah. We can hear you.
Yes, no?
Jeff, yes.
I don't know.
Maybe he can't hear us.
Chris says, Collis with the gamer gatekeeping.
Oh.
Jeff.
Bye, Jeff.
We need to send them some real equipment. I don't know why I've waited this long.
He's ready for
Jeff
that.
always wants us to do a giveaway. Maybe it's time we gave away to him.
Yeah. He needs a headset or something. Jonathan says this is a sound. This sounds. Jonathan, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure that out. That is a sound multiple for crazy COVID multiples. I'm trying to figure out. Do you think it's crazy, or do you think it's in line? Because I actually don't think what they paid for Glue is that crazy in the context of other acquisitions we've seen, right? In the context of Codemasters going for 1.2 billion, and you know, some of the recent Embracer acquisitions where they bought you know, $2.5 billion worth of game publishers. Like, game publishers right now are in hot demand, and I think this is why you're seeing crazy multiples. But in the long run, I wouldn't be surprised if almost all of these acquisitions go down as being quite positive. Jeff, you were saying we could all hear you.
I was in the middle of my rant. I think you kicked me out because I was ranting and saying you were wrong.
I did not kick you out.
Yeah. So, I mean, fundamentally, EA has had a problem with mobile. Their CEO kind of comes from the console space. Investors have been on them on that. He hasn't really had a plan in mobile. To me, I would have rather them paid up and get the better asset in Zynga. Would have been more expensive, but it would have been a better asset. They have better games that are at scale. Fundamentally, the issue with Glue, and their two biggest games are Design Home and Tap Sports Baseball. Tap Sports Baseball could be interesting within the EA portfolio, and maybe that's one that they can really scale up and grow. But it's similar to my commentary on Ubisoft, where it's like, if you have a bunch of titles that are making 50 to 100 million mobile, when you back out the Apple fees of 30%, and then you have to spend about 40% of the revenue on user acquisition because it's like a leaky bucket. It's just the way mobile works. You have to there's so much churn. You have to continually be spending more users. The bottom line is they never really had scale to be profitable. So I think in their best year last year, they were maybe doing like 12 to 15% EBITDA margins. Unless they can really scale up some of these titles, it's going to be hard to see them kind of get that bottom line scale that I think when you're an EA investor and you're valuing them on EPS or EBITDA, you're going to really want. So I think same thing with Codemasters, actually. I think EA has kind of been out there, you know, buying sort of B+ assets, and paying like A+, you know, multiples. So yeah, and I know the Glue guys really well, so I don't want to be too hard on them. This is a great exit for them and an incredible price for them to get. But I just don't love this acquisition for EA, and I don't love the Codemasters one either.
I think long term you're probably going to be wrong on those, Jeff. But I see your point in the short term. But I come back to William's point of there's just it's getting harder and harder to come out with new sort of IP, new brands. Like launching a mobile gaming business and getting it to $500 million of revenue today is not trivial, right? Like as profitable and as lucrative, I should say, as mobile is. It's not trivial. Jonathan says, I'm seeing 20x multiples, cannot disclose. Yeah, Jonathan, I mean, I probably could disclose a bunch of them. This is not out of line for the industry at all right now, at all. And Chris says, Jeff is buying a gaming license, but still can't buy a set of gamer headphones.
Or a gamer.
We're working on it.
One thing I did want to bring up here, potential acquirer for Zynga, since we're on the Zynga, and there was a Zynga story, which I will put in the chat, which more just talking about the strength of their business right now. But I don't think it's Take-Two. I don't think it's EA or Activision Blizzard. They all have their own plays. I think the right acquirer for Zynga, quite honestly, is Amazon. Because if you think about it, hang on, they're struggling to make games. They have a massive, massive tablet business, right? Fire tablets are probably the cheapest entry point in the entire tablet market. And they can create, if Zynga has real tech around platform and stuff like that, like they like to talk about, you can do two things under Amazon's umbrella. One, you can bundle a whole bunch of great free Zynga games with your Amazon Fire tablet and almost have it as a service, right? Like Apple Arcade style. And B, create a marketplace for developers developing on whatever Zynga's platform is that gets sold through Apple's own, store, Amazon's own store. I think Amazon makes a lot of sense, and they're definitely big enough to swallow Zynga. This puts them in the gaming conversation, I think, in a much bigger way, and good integration with Twitch for mobile streaming, things like that. Like, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think that's brilliant, Paul. I think that's brilliant.
But Amazon has they have no ambitions, and they have no ambitions in mobile gaming. They're trying to build like Stadia console gaming. So I mean, that to me, I don't know if that necessarily makes sense. I see your point about tablets, and the only reason I probably could actually see that is because I think Frank Gibeau is one of the top 3 probably gaming executives out there, and Amazon doesn't appear to have anyone good running their gaming business. So maybe it's worth it to acquire Frank. I'm kind of being facetious, but
15 billion acquihire. I'm not sure that's
if you're Amazon,
how you would explain it to the market, but
if you're Amazon, yeah, I think the buyer for Zynga is honestly probably Activision. The answer in any game M&A is 2 things: it's either Tencent or Bobby. That those are the 2 answers when who's someone going to acquire or who's going to get acquired by someone. It's always Tencent because they buy everyone, or Activision. And the reason Activision I think makes sense is they've shown a proclivity for mobile. It's a big part of their strategy is bringing all their franchises to mobile. And with King, they have a massive business already in sort of match 3, but they don't really have anything in puzzle, which is a massive area of casual sort of free-to-play mobile that Zynga kind of dominates. So I think that would be my guess. And just size-wise, it kind of makes sense. Like everyone had forever said EA was going to buy Zynga. That never, and it made some sense. A lot of Zynga's executives came out of EA, but I think there was a lot more bad blood there than people realized. Basically, Andrew Wilson took Frank Gibeau's job, or the job that he thought he was going to get as EA CEO. So there probably isn't a world where Andrew's going to then go bring him kind of back into the company. But that's a little bit of inside baseball. But yeah, I think Activision would be the buyer in my opinion, unless Tencent.
Yeah, I want to move on. I want to move on from this. I'm going to have the last word. Activision won't buy Zynga. Bobby's out of good ideas. He's already giving money back to shareholders through share buybacks. He is out of ideas, and you can laugh all you want, but I'm right, and I always am. And Lewis says, no way Amazon buys Zynga. I don't think a takeout is the story here. So much more value to be created on its own. Lewis, I don't disagree with you in terms of what will likely happen. What I was suggesting is Amazon should buy Zynga. Now, GameStop didn't listen to me about what to do with their business. And so I'm sure Amazon or Zynga won't listen to me either. But doesn't mean I'm not right here.
So, you know who listens to you, Paul? GMBL. That's it.
and look, the proof's in the pudding. 170% up year to date. For anyone who follows the profit, I make you money. That's just the reality. Let's switch gears here. Let's talk about Astralis. Okay, I want to talk about some esports teams. I'm going to put this story in chat here. The headline here from the Esports Insider: Astralis to open flagship store at Tivoli Gardens. And what's interesting is the store is set to open in June. It's going to be a part of Tivoli Gardens, which is an amusement park. They're going to have 130 gaming setups, VIP rooms, merch store. It's the first time I think I've seen a collision between amusement parks and gaming. Lindsay, is this a trend you want to see more of? Do you think this is going to work? Will people who go to the amusement park be interested in sitting and playing Counter-Strike for 5 hours?
Well, Paul, if we believe in your vision of the future, which I think most of us do, amusement parks are probably going to have to put these types of things in.
True.
So maybe this is just the amusement park of the future.
but like, do you see it? Like, are we ever going to see a Disney with 100 Thieves like store? Like, is this where this is all going?
That's a question for you. How does the holodeck play out with amusement parks? Come on.
Victoria, are we going to see 100 Thieves at Disney?
Paul. That was a direct challenge.
I know.
Oh my gosh. At Disney?
Yeah,
We're talking about
because look, this is like Tivoli Gardens, and I'm not trying to like downplay the importance of Tivoli Gardens like as an amusement. I'm just, to me, Disney World is like the pinnacle of amusement parks. So if they do it, all else will follow, right? Will we see a Helix gaming center at Disney World? Will we see will we see collision between amusement parks and gaming more, or is this a one-off?
I think you will see more collision, right? And just to kind of throw it out there, it's because, and I was going to speak specifically about the teams and collision here. It's because these are brands, right? And as they start to grow, they'll stand for something. And so, yeah, hearing G2 at Disneyland doesn't feel right, but hearing FaZe Clan at Six Flags, like, I could get behind that, right? I could see that, like, the FaZe Extreme roller coaster, like, there are elements of brand overlap, and any good brand custodian recognizes the attributes that their brands have, which are usually independent from the product classes that they're in, and looks for product extensions. Now, in this particular one with Astralis and everything, I sense maybe a little more desperation, right? This doesn't feel as strategic to me as, say, FaZe and Six Flags, which, by the way, I get a share of if that ever happens. But like, the point I'm making is, like, these are consumer facing brands that mean something. And you're not surprised that you can go to the Baseball Hall of Fame or the Football Hall of Fame. You're not surprised when there's interactive, like football throwing things at an amusement park. Like, you're going to see some stuff here, I think.
Victoria, you were about to say something. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm back and forth on this. I think, like, to William's point, we already see a lot of interactive, like, I've seen lots of VR pop-ups at different amusement parks. And I think there's a natural collaboration opportunity between the two. I think it's just going to come down to what brands, like, if it's not a pop-up, if it's like a store that's there to stay, or if they're like naming a roller coaster after it, it's just going to be, can the two brands work together in a way that's going to be mutually profitable? But I think you guys are right. I think, or to Paul's point, I think in order for them to continue gaining interest among Gen Z, they're probably going to have to make some serious changes, right? They're probably going to have to offer that to get the foot traffic in the park.
I worry for the roller coasters, right? Like you're essentially letting the what is it, the wolf in the hen house or whatever, like the thing that could put your roller coaster business out of business, you're essentially welcoming into the park, which, from a business standpoint, you could say that's genius, right? Might as well cannibalize your own business with your own business. But
I agree. I agree. If they're not going to come to your park, they're going to go elsewhere for that. I mean, we're seeing a lot of talk of opening up, arenas or playing centers in malls or shopping centers, especially in non-city areas, like more suburban areas. Same thing. You're not going to downtown city cores, to arenas or to see pop-up shops necessarily. So, people who they don't have a lot going on, they're not in a upbeat city and they want to go for an event that's going on or some special appearances. Maybe they get some players there and they're going to ride the roller coasters. I mean, come on. Who's going to pass up on that? They're already there.
I think this activation's cool. I also find it's a little bit of like teams grasping at straws for monetization, right? Like it feels a little bit like teams continue struggle to monetize their brand, and they're trying everything. And it's good to at least see them trying. Jonathan said, Paul, what's your Reddit tag now? Jonathan, I want to address Jonathan's question, William, and then I'm going to come to you. Jonathan, look, the only thing I post on Reddit are podcasts and our live streams every so often. They do get a lot of likes, though, I will say that. And on the podcast, I only endorse things I believe in. The disclaimer always is, I'm not selling stock in GMBL. I'm not a financial advisor. You should consult an expert before you invest. But I do only endorse things that I truly believe in, and that I think is fundamentally one of the differences. Sorry, William, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, particularly for Astralis Group to be doing this, because I think when they were first, they went public, right? And when they were first going public, their pitch was the only pure play esports team. Like that was their strategy, was they were just going to be a team, and that was why they were different. So this one does feel a bit of a reach to me.
Greg says Disney is already adding gaming rooms at its parks and cruises. This is just the next step for them. Greg, that I actually didn't know that. Are they really? Like if you go on a Disney cruise, they have a room where you can go play like video games? That's
Greg,
cool.
Stop it. You're making me love Disney more. Stop it.
It helps address the older teen crowd. Disney can create a Tron world. I agree. And in some ways it's maybe a solution to amusement park issues, which is not everyone wants to go on the same things. Like if you can dump your older teen at like the gaming section and then go do the things you want, maybe that's interesting.
It's so funny because when you said that there's gaming rooms on the Disney cruises, all of our eyes light up. William's like, no way. Oh man, I want to go to a cruise. But in my mind, I'm like, they definitely put those in for all the parents to dump their kids. Meanwhile, we're like, oh, right.
Plus the latency out on the open ocean can't be that good, right? Like you're gonna have a high ping.
Giant land party, Paul. It's a giant land party on the ocean. What do you want?
What? Here's the. I could see a cruise line, right? Where
that's the only game. That's all.
We should start a cruise line where everyone just plays games. There's no stops. There's no activities. You go on there for the big land party. I'm not sure why we need to be on a boat or on the ocean for this.
Happens like if you look outside starboard, you'll see the beautiful Isle of Santorini. Like,
just don't slow down. Just keep the boat moving.
Guys, let's move on. I want to talk about. God, this is like such a visual story. I'm going to leave this for the end. Let's talk about another story related to esports teams, but this one was not nearly as positive. Martin says, "Ahoy, William! Let's land at sea." There's an inside. I'm laughing because there's an inside joke, guys, among us about a conference we would like to launch, and I've always said the Business of Esports needs to do an esports conference totally different from anyone else, right? Like. There's just so much like, for lack of a better word, just garbage out there in terms of conferences. They're all the same. It's all the same speakers. They gouge you for $100 and basically get no value out of it. And so I've challenged everyone that you see in this room to come up with let's come up with something better and let's do it totally different. And the the current leading idea, for whatever reason, is we're going to do the Business of Esports conference on a yacht. I don't know why.
For whatever reason.
For all the reasons.
And we're going to host it at a horse racing station. Like, what do you mean? Yachts don't need a reason.
And William, the Professor Collis, who's also a marketing genius in his spare time, came up with Yacht Your Average Conference. So there you go. I delivered William's dad joke of the week here. Can we
drop the mic? Quick, drop the mic.
Can we get back to esports here? All right. North.
Don't actually
esports.
drop it because it'll sound like Jeff.
It'll be deaf. Oh wow.
Hey, my ears are ringing right now. You guys are all so loud in my ears. I need new mics.
No kidding.
Really?
Do I sound that bad? Tell me in the comments. I'll just leave. I've done my earnings rants for the week, so I feel pretty good about it.
Let's talk about North Esports. North Esports dissolved. They're no more. This was a pretty big team, especially in CS:GO, with a pretty large following. It's a Danish company. And they're saying it was the financial impact of COVID-19. My simple view is I don't buy that. Any of you who have different thoughts in terms of why North shut down, why they dissolved, and is this maybe a leading indicator of some sort, or am I reading too much into that? Anyone have thoughts on this? William, I know you're the team guy.
Yeah, you always want me to comment on team stuff, but it's difficult for me to, to share here,
But why did North fail? That's the crux of it. What did they not do?
I guess I'd ask what
they didn't have an Overwatch League team. That was too easy to point to, right?
Yeah, but that was sort of what I was going to say. Like, what games was North in, right? Like, let's just go through
CS,
yeah,
Apex, and FIFA.
Okay, so it was Overwatch, Apex, and FIFA, right?
No, CS:GO, Apex Legends, and FIFA. No Overwatch. I was joking.
Yeah, I was like, what? I was like, yeah. Look, it's difficult to say, it's difficult to look. I'm sure there's some truth to COVID being cited and everything, but the reality is, I don't believe North was winning any tournaments in any of those games, right? I'm not aware, unless I'm wrong, of North being the Apex Legends world champion or the CS:GO world champion, right? Those are also expensive games to be in. CS:GO in particular is crazy expensive to compete in, right? So they're high cost games. They're not necessarily games. They're not high cost games. Oh, is my mic? Hold on, guys. Let me try to fix it. Anyway, Paul, you can.
You know what I got? I took off my headphones, but it might have made everything worse.
No, you need to put the headphones back in.
Kick me out. I've done that. I'll be myself.
It's like herding cats.
Okay. North, Lindsay. Why do you think so? Is the COVID thing a cop-out from an esports team shutting down perspective? Let's start with that.
I mean, I don't think it's a cop-out, but I don't think that you can place 100% of the blame on that. If you
why haven't we seen 10 other teams fail if it's COVID, right?
Yeah, and it's probably playing a part in a lot of teams' business, or it's definitely playing a part in a lot of teams' businesses right now. I think success or failure is probably a much bigger multitude of factors than just saying it was COVID, though. I think that's completely unfair and unreasonable.
I mean, Victoria or Lindsay, is it the take I've had on, or the way I looked at it was, we've seen literally every esports team under the sun, literally every single one, raise massive amounts of dollars at the high end, and even at the low end, raise millions of dollars, right? I don't think I've seen one story of an esports team not going out and raising at least $1 million or more, even some ones I've never heard of, right? The fact here that North could not raise more money to save the business, because I'm sure they tried, and I think even the article mentions that they had gone out to raise money. Like, there must be something there, right? Like, is this just bad management? Is this, the story wasn't good? Like, because having a CS team, Apex Legends and FIFA, they're in popular games. They're a recognized brand. Like, why did they not find traction with investors? That's what I'm curious about. Yeah,
I don't know enough about the financial intricacies around the game, the team scene. All I can say is that it's surprising to hear that they tried to get more funding and were unsuccessful, especially in the times we are right now with all the growth. It seems a little bit surprising for a well-established team to not be able to regain that momentum, whatever hurt they had financially. But again, I'm too far outside of this.
I think this is one of those clear indicators of, if they couldn't find a single investor for this, there was, like, it's one of those where there's smoke, there's fire. There was something ugly about this business that I think kept investors away, because otherwise they seem to have, from an outside perspective, all the pieces to raise money in the current environment we're in. Lindsay, sorry, you were going to say.
No, just didn't William say that they weren't winning too? So it's like,
yeah, but there's a lot of teams that don't win.
But I mean, clearly they didn't have like a huge cultural following either. It just, like you said, I'm sure that there was not great management principles or things that people got excited about, and you compound that with a pandemic era world where tournaments are canceled all over the place, and I don't think it's bound to end in a happy story.
I agree. Martin says, Jeff, you sound like you're chatting to us through a tin can.
Can you hear
Chris
me now?
says the logo
Holding my
with
mic
the
up.
list didn't help
How about
any.
now?
And Cam says, how is Jeff a boomer?
The question we all need to answer. Thank you, Cam.
And Martin says, Jeff's mic sounds good in comparison now. Jeff can always rely.
Jeff's gonna go to Best Buy after this and call the Geek Squad to help him out. So he'll be
Call the geeks.
Is that a joke or serious? Because I actually might do that. I was considering going to Best Buy today.
That was a savage.
Is that a boomer joke?
Burn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a boomer joke. Because I'm serious. I'm going to do that.
that is the fact that you thought that could be true is why I love you.
How else do you get technology help? I mean, I
That's
either
true.
ask Paul or I go to Best Buy and get the Geek Squad.
Great question. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, I don't know.
Always low prices. You can't.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Let's finish here. I'm going to put this article out because it is visual, and I kind of love it. We talked very, very briefly about Corsair, reporting record earnings. Not to be left out of the whole hardware game is IKEA. And they announced, this is from housebeautiful.com, they announced their new gaming range, which includes desks, chairs, a neck pillow, a ring light. So they have a whole sort of whack of gaming products now. And fundamentally, the article talks about how they're looking to target, the 2.5 billion gamers on the planet with more cost-effective kind of solutions. And when you look at it, like, the products look pretty nice. And when you think about a Corsair ring light being like $200, and I don't know what the IKEA one's going to go for, I assume much less. Could we see an even bigger explosion? Like, one of the comments they make here in the article is that they really want to democratize the gaming experience. And one of the things they sought to achieve was make the design less masculine centric, right? Because 46% of gamers are female, and they wanted to make products that appeal to everyone. Who thinks IKEA will hit Corsair levels of popularity in terms of gaming hardware, and who thinks this is just a lost cause?
I think this is the greatest news of all time. Like, I'm quite serious. Like, I even think I said I wanted IKEA to do this like 9 months ago or something, right? Wait, are you guys making fun of me? Am I
No.
doing a?
No, you actually love this?
It is the most natural play in the world, right? Because for two reasons. Okay, so one is, who is the IKEA market? It's people setting themselves up for the first time, right? Like first apartment, moving into a college dorm room, need to do some expansion to a house you just moved into, right? Those are predominantly younger purchasers, huge overlap with gamers, right? Second of all, look around people's houses and see how much space gaming takes up for any gamer. Literally, like you are buying furniture for it, you need it, right? So there's huge synergies. It's a missed item that their consumers, people who are already shopping there, need. But the other reason why this is great is, what does IKEA struggle with? Online sales. They have absolutely done a disastrous job transitioning to e-commerce. This is now a potential anchor for them to relook at e-commerce plays and have better distribution to a millennial plus audience. Great move.
The e-com point is a good one, William, which is like if you go to order anything on IKEA, I think the minimum shipping is like $50 or something, right? Like that's
you can't. It will tell you things are in stock that aren't. It will not let you check out and not tell you why. They know they're bad at it. I think they've said it publicly.
Because they're shipping it from like the North Pole. Isn't IKEA based in like some like Scandinavia or something? It's like being built by elves.
Swedish, but yes.
They haven't figured it out. William, I thought your response, I was fully expecting to be like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Maybe I'm just in a bad mood tonight because my ears are ringing from these headphones. But I thought your explanation was great. So that you've changed my mind. I think you're right.
I mean,
they have some very cool products too, right? Like the ring light is usually very expensive. They have like a cool phone holder. The sit stand desks are usually very expensive. They have this multifunctional cushion blanket, like to keep your hands warm. A mug holder that you can attach to your desk. Like there are some really creative things here that even other gaming companies aren't doing. Lindsay, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the one-stop shop in general is popular. So if IKEA is just becoming a one-stop shop, and rather than, like William said, anyone who's looking for furniture, like the first place that I look is IKEA. So anyone who's looking for something, and IKEA is great because they intentionally design their stores like mazes so you have to wander through the whole thing. And things
and
like
they give you free cheese sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And then they feed you right at the end. It's
It's
true.
like amazing.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, it's a one-stop shop for everything you possibly need. So
I'm trying to figure out how much their mouse bungee is, just to get a sense of the pricing. I don't know how to convert this here, or their ring light. It says, I don't even know what currency this is in, but I think those are Chinese yuan. What is the conversion? Does anyone know? In USD?
no.
Like 15 cents to one. So like, actually, this is very cheap. Like if you look at their ring light, you're talking about $40, like $40 for a ring light, which is like, this could be very disruptive, right? If you're talking about an industry where everything else sells at 150 plus.
It's what IKEA did to furniture. Like
Right,
their whole prior business model was, why should it be $500 for a table? This is ridiculous. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this. I think that it's a perfect marriage. And I mean, I think they picked the perfect time. They kind of made this into a big PR play, right? Their current customer base is already pretty much 50-50, men and women. And then they're looking at the need to grow the prominence among women and having a greater focus on serving women in the industry. So they launched this line, and they have that PR play kind of intertwined to their line of products. So they're specifically saying we have designs suited for women, right? They already have the customer base of 50% women. It lines up with, the price point. Exactly. It's going to be a lot of college students. Maybe they have sizes that can fit in dorm rooms. I love this. I agree. I'm glad you guys were all pro this story, because I was sitting here like, shit, if everyone hates on this and I have to say I'm the one person I think this is perfect. Huge fan.
It's a little bit of like fast follower too, which I think works, right? They're not out there first making gaming products, right? Obviously the Razors and the Corsairs have been doing it for years, but I think by coming in now when they are, Victoria, to your point, the timing is good in the sense that they now know what gamers want, right? Like it's very clear what sells, like the ring lights and the big mouse pads and the standing desks and, you know, the gamer chair and the gamer cushion. Like they have a sense of what you need to bring to market, and can be just completely disruptive from a pricing standpoint, because Corsair can't just cut all their prices in half tomorrow, right? They won't be able to do that. And so, and
that's just it. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Victoria.
I was just going to say that's just it. I don't think IKEA's coming into this space trying to directly compete. I think they're just coming in as a lower price point option, an entry level option. And, you know, there's a lot of people in this industry who want the setup, but they're not necessarily, you know, brand whores. They don't really care about the logo on the back of their gaming chair. Maybe they're not streaming. They don't really care about the branded peripherals. And it's an affordability, right?
Agree 100%. Guys, I don't have any other stories this week. So that effectively wraps up this live stream. I will say we got to do, I just going to read these comments and then we're going to do everyone's favorite segment. Martin says, that's awesome. IKEA's getting involved. I agree. Chris says every college kid is buying a gamer setup at IKEA. Yeah. Like it kind of, I think everyone sort of said that, which is, you know, if you're going to go for your college dorm room furniture, you might as well buy your gaming setup too. IKEA could have saved North. Chris, they could have, I'm sure. And Martin says, and as you said, everyone in IKEA is going to be exposed to this gaming stuff in the maze too. They should partner up and actually put PCs so you can sit and play at the IKEA, right? And order meatballs straight to your table.
That's an amazing idea. Don't just blow past that. I mean, I always say IKEA is the perfect date. You go, it's fun. You go through the maze. Like you said, you can get pierogies, meatballs. You're older. You want to drop your kids off in the play zone.
Would you say that, you know, IKEA is a metaverse? Feels to me like it could be a metaverse.
It could, Jeff, it could totally be a metaverse. There's going to be an IKEA app.
I'll tell you what, Jeff, it's 2 steps away from Disney. It's basically becoming Disney.
It's basically becoming Disney.
100%.
You won't have to physically go to IKEA anymore.
William, in the sort of pantheon of company evolution, is Disney ahead of metaverse? Because Disney isn't a metaverse yet. So do things become Disney and then they become a metaverse, or vice versa?
Which is the annual units of GTA 5 sold that determines how close you are to being Disney and metaverse. I can share the logarithmic chart with you if you'd be interested.
Yes. Please.
Let's finish, guys, with what are we playing this week? I actually did play something this week, so I have something to talk about. But Lindsay, go ahead.
Mario Kart. It's been so fun.
Mario Kart's a great game. It's a great game.
Yeah, and
even NQC streams
in Mario Kart 64, by the way. Big new skips.
What's that, William?
Oh, there's some new like speedrunning tech to drive through walls in Mario Kart 64. It's pretty tight.
Okay. Victoria?
I finally made the plunge and I bought Cold War on my PS5. So I've been pretty heavy in multiplayer. Getting back at it
on your PS5. This is like hardcore.
Yeah.
We're in hardcore gamer territory now.
Yeah,
this is like a big jump from Dadish 2.
Should I drop the mic? Yeah, I know. Dadish 2. All of a sudden, I graduate to Cold War. Yeah, I'm loving it.
Martin's playing Hades and chess. Those are becoming quick classics from an esports perspective. William?
Valorant. I've been playing Valorant with you, Paul. With you.
Yes. Tell the
Lindsay,
audience, how did that go, William? How did that go?
I mean, as I said, we won, and it's difficult to attribute performance beyond that.
I never get invited to these Valorant games.
Chris says no one talking about Valheim. Chris, that's the like Rust, but in like medieval era kind of Rust, right? I think in early access. I have not tried it, but I have seen gameplay online. It looks interesting. I probably will try it. Rust is just one of those black holes of games, like real black holes. And if you're not like dedicated and put in the hours, you just get completely demolished by players that play ridiculous number of hours. Sales numbers are crazy. Viking Survivor. Yeah. There's a bigger conversation here, Chris, which is like the new hotness always seems to be very hyped, right? And the question is, does this have legs? I don't know. I'd have to try it to be able to give at least my impression. Have any of you guys played Valheim yet or no?
It's on my list next week. Next week we'll tell you, Chris.
Jeff, do I have to even ask what you're playing? I mean, given
I thought you were going to skip me. I was upset.
Tin can internet and the.
I didn't play anything, but if anyone could please recommend in the comments some good headphones, whatever the best cool headphones to use on Zoom calls and live streams, that'd be awesome. So I don't have to hold my AirPods like the goddamn cell phone in Zoolander. So like it's just like this is just ridiculous right now because for some reason the volume is really loud and my eardrums are bleeding. So I've been going through that pain for all of you guys.
Have you tried turning it down?
Turn it down.
I did try that, Victoria. It didn't work. that was my first.
Hey, troubleshoot number one.
I was going to turn it off and turn it on. That's usually what I do when my console doesn't work.
Unplug it, plug it back in.
Exactly.
I love that you have like the hardware guru here. I mean,
yes.
Like the guy
I could open a Best Buy.
Only of hardware reviews. And still no.
We're going to have a long talk after this.
Yes, we are. This is the last. This is for our listeners, for anyone still around. I promise you, this is the last live stream you see with bad audio quality. We are going to fix Jeff's setup here if it's the last thing I do. Okay. Martin says Bluetooth Sony ones are solid. Chris says SteelSeries. I'm gonna get Jeff into the world of wires because wireless just is never as good quality. So we're gonna have wires running both for Ethernet and for audio because this wireless stuff doesn't work. What did I play this week? I played Valorant with William. If you want to call played.
How's your back feeling, Paul? It's a little sore.
Pain. This shoulder's been hurting all week.
Sorry, Will.
No, I had a lot of fun. Valorant has been growing on me. I think probably because of the skins. It's the stuff that I will say this. Here's the insight. CS has been so dominant for so long, so relevant for so long. I've always believed because of the skins and the investment people have made in skins. I think Valorant has the potential long-term to be like that too. And the game's getting more and more solid. I will say I also played from some Escape from Tarkov, which also has been growing on me. It's one of those games that like the first 100 times you play it, you just get your ass kicked until eventually you don't. Martin says, what agents do you guys play? William, go ahead.
Well, I'm pretty big into Viper, Omen, and a little bit of Jet. You know, Omen's probably my main. I think this is a straight answer. I'm not joking.
William is just can play so many roles effectively. He's really a very
like a Swiss Army knife.
That's it.
I'm what you would call versatile. I can queue as anyone, and I add value.
That's it. I'm a Phoenix main, Martin, because I like flashing my own team. This is what I do. On that note, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the live stream. Check out the podcast tomorrow. It's different. Would love your feedback. Like, reach out to me if you liked it. If you didn't like it, it is different. Martin, Chris, Cam, Jonathan, Greg, all of you guys, Lewis, everyone who was in here. Really appreciate you guys participating. It's what makes the live stream fun. As always, we do it every Wednesday night, 8:30 Eastern time. Tell your friends about it. Spread the word. If you haven't yet, go buy some Business of Esports merch. Soon you're going to see everyone here wearing them because I'm sending everyone some. And you guys better wear it on the stream. But yeah, go buy a pair of socks at least, or a few pairs of socks. They're really quite awesome. And as always, guys, thank you for coming out. Follow us on TikTok, follow us on Instagram at Biz Esports. Those two are growing like crazy. And this Friday, we're doing, as always, another Clubhouse Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Future of Fun Fridays on Clubhouse. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, William. And we will see all of you guys next week.